Hey. Thank you.
Hello.
Hey, Niels, what's happening, man?
Oh, I still got the Christmas background from the Christmas party.
Yeah, there you go. Get festive, man.
Oh, you got a pretty background as well. You don't
Yeah,
need a
exactly.
virtual.
Yeah, I'm doing it for real here.
Yeah. Yeah. Me, not so much. I just have this one small Christmas tree. That's it.
That's all right. I hope to act as inspiration.
It's inspiring.
It's a something. It's a something. I don't think we've met though before, have we?
No. Actually, this is my first time here. I saw someone share a meeting. Maybe it was you. I'm not sure. In the Liberators Discord.
Yep.
And I thought, well, looks interesting. Let's just join and see what happens. So don't think I prepared anything.
Yeah, don't think I prepared anything either. All I know is, hey, I got an idea, so we better get that up into creation first and foremost before I go overthinking it. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I don't expect a huge turnout. Maybe Maya will show up. Maybe David will show up, and in 4 more minutes we'll get into it. Either way, figure out something to do. I've always got something I need help planning with. So if you want to think together with that, great.
Oh,
if you've got
sure.
something you'd like some help with.
No, I'm just here to listen, watch, and learn, and give some creative input.
Righteous.
And maybe I will figure something out for next time. That's let's just first listen what the session is like and what kind of input you're looking for.
Yeah. I mean, well, this is the first time, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and because it was quite short notice. I mean, I heard about this morning or something.
Well, let me take it up a notch, right? It was an idea that came up in conversation with Maya, a friend of mine, last week, and I just put it on the calendar for this meetup group, and yeah, let's see what happens. So this will be the inaugural run, and we'll try and. I expect we'll probably do 2 moves. We'll probably do a round of TRIZ or something along those lines, since we're just creating this space together, really. How can we fuck it up, right? To map out the not do space and help offer us some guidelines for what might help make it particularly productive.
Yeah.
And then once we've sort of got that mapped out and grounded together, then we can get into, if nothing else, my design challenge for the liberating structures scene. There's Maya. Cool. Let me get rid of my face, since that's not necessary.
Hi.
Yes, the call is live. Hey, and somebody else. Awesome, stuff is happening.
Yeah. And then there were 4. Hi.
Hi, Pleasance.
Hello, good morning.
How you doing? Good morning for you. Where are you at?
Oh, I live in DC.
Ah, cool.
How about you?
I'm in Amsterdam.
Oh, it's not 10 a.m. there.
No, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Well, it's 4 o'clock. Awesome. Thanks for joining.
I just saw this come in my email this morning. So I'm like, hi, I'm just going rogue. And thought I would join and see what happens.
Righteous. That's rad. I mean, we're all in your subgroup, right? So this is an idea that sort of popped up in my brain thanks to Maya, our other co-conspirator here today. I used to work with Maya, and she mentioned that one of the ways that was really helpful for her to get plugged into liberating structure sort of as a design language was just in the practical space of design and workshops together. And so I figured, well, that's really easy to put that to open that space up to other people and give them a peek in the kitchen. And so I threw together this event, and this is the first go around.
Awesome.
So as we're crossing the time boundary, we'll I guess I'll get cranked into whatever official mode of Jeremy is. So my intention for the space today is really just to sort of feel it out and figure out how we might be able to build on it for going forward. My fantasy would be to hold this basically on a weekly basis, just because I know I've always got stuff to plan. So I figure you guys do as too. So the more people we can populate this space with, the more awesome thinking and great stuff we can help plan to infect the world and galaxy with more unleash and involve everybody, and we all go home happy. But since there's obviously a lot more complexity to that, I think the first move, there's Dave Pendle as well, cool. The first move is actually to think about the opposite. So I want to invite everybody first to activate some TRIZ thinking and figure out, like, hey, if we can take this collaborative design spaces, how could we make it actually like a force for just like disruption and destruction that makes everybody feel dirty and unclean and and effectively not useful for anyone in particular. So if you want to grab your pen and paper and start thinking on that, I'll explain this to Dave. Dave, I'm looking at you through a tunnel. This is an interesting effect you've got going.
It's a laptop malfunction. Not an effect.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's all right. Yeah, maybe some rebranding. Could use some rebranding on that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining. This is our first go of whatever this design space we're prototyping is, and the first move I want to invite everybody into is to think about how we could actively create the worst possible experience for all parties involved in this design space. So what is it we could do, and how could we create a vibe that is just super toxic and unhelpful and leads to all types of nasty externalities in the world?
Okay.
So if you want to start off with us just in your solo space, taking notes of whatever actions you think could help us get to that messy entropic future. I'll open up some breakout rooms, and you guys can sneak into them to do some more generative thinking along those lines, basically whenever you're ready. No auto close. So there's breakout rooms whenever you're ready to sneak into some one-on-one space.
How long have we got?
I mean,
You're not telling us because it's supposed to be disruptive.
I mean, 10 minutes should be good to do an initial round, since we're not going to end up entering. Well, we'll see. Yo, Maya, you situated? So did you catch the invite for TRIZ? Okay. Well, the first thing I want everybody's help with is to figure out what we can do to create a really horrible experience that makes this space like really traumatic and leads to lots of nasty externalities that would cause pain and disruption in the world. So just entering into some TRIZ thinking for whatever this design space is and could be to help us map out what we might want to avoid. So yeah. Yeah, breakout rooms are open. So if you want to take a minute to gather your thoughts and then join Niels in room 2. Yeah. No, what happened?
Hey Google, set an alarm for 4:30. There, your alarm's set for 4:30 p.m.
Can you turn it down, please? Yo, yo.
There we are.
Cool. Let me spam Dave and Pleasance. Yeah, you know.
Like
Uh,
right now.
Yeah,
Immediately.
right, exactly. I like to combine being both passive and aggressive as possible.
I'm not suggesting anything, but right now would be a very opportune moment to get back.
Yeah. Let's see, communities of practice. That's what I'm looking for. Not working's got a storyboard. They're just a template.
Maybe they don't know how to get back.
I'm sure they do. We'll figure it out at some point. We'll figure it out together.
why do we always have these sessions with technically very capable people, but when we actually do liberating structures or workshops, it's like you are working with your grandfather.
Yeah, I am my grandfather, that's for sure. I'm trying to find a design storyboard. Otherwise, I'll just use mine. Hey. I guess I'm going to do this the other easy way. We're just going to mainline you guys into my brain. I'm going to make life easy like that. Meetings. Start. Yeah, let's just join that one. Yep, got it. No audio. Oh, that's my face. No, stop. What do we got, gang? How can we turn this into a really, truly traumatizing, nightmarish experience for everybody?
No.
Maya, if you're talking, you need to unmute.
Thank you.
That's the first one for
There
sure.
might be this remember that I should unmute myself. It will be a great result of the year. Niels mentioned no structure and having a long conversations, and I mentioned too much structure and pressure and too much of time constraints. So we are here, address some polarities.
Oh, that was loud. So we got low structure. Oh, wow, that's terrifying. I'm sorry. Oh, what were you saying, Niels, about technically capable people and things being a mess?
I'm just pointing and laughing at this point.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
That's okay.
I wanted to share notes. Let me try this one more time. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
It looks like something is working.
Something's happening. Awesome. Cool. All right. So, Maya, you said you guys had both low structure and what was it?
And too much structure.
Ah, okay. So we've got
Time
the,
pressure.
we've got skill and Charybdis. All right. Too much structure and time pressure.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
That's a surprisingly accurate, what is it? 2, 4, 6, 7 word summary of a 5-minute discussion.
Cool. And what about you guys, Dave, Pleasance? What insight can you guys offer about how we can turn this place into a good, proper mess?
We had confused design and sort of lack of knowing when to intervene, like just letting people run things that are harming the group, but not intervening.
Right. So a lot of noise. That lines up with, these are my thoughts initially, right? No concretion. Like if we come into this design space and it's all just like super vague and abstractness, and that we don't use any tools or create any artifacts that do folks any good. that also sort of lines up on this space. I think when you say allow people to interrupt, right? Tell each other that your ideas are stupid, and if we end up with the wall of yell and talking over each other, that probably wouldn't be super productive. And get into some form of competition about no, look at my ideas, they're better than yours, and no, that idea isn't great. Those seem salient to me. Pleasance, was there anything else that you think hasn't been spoken that came up for you?
I think that speaks a little bit to the time pressure, but just the sense of urgency and content over the humans, like over the emotional body, the spiritual body, the energy of the room. I've seen, depending on what you're leading and talking about, if there's something relevant in the room and we are not addressing it, how harmful that can be, because we know we're not able to be present if we're all thinking about the, recent blah, blah, blah traumatic
Right.
event. And we're sort of ignoring it to content is king, that kind of thing.
True story. So in some ways, sort of describing like the rigid adherence to the sort of process and structure, regardless of what sort of is obviously on people's mind or happening in the room, it sounds like.
And just to tack on that, also a kind of, I know we're talking about facilitating, but there's a tendency to lecture, but do that in a very detached and disembodied way, where there's no aliveness or interest in the topic. So the lecturing is pretty deadly, but when you add that, they're like toxic.
Right, lecturing's bad enough, let alone like without aliveness. I like how you put that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Awesome.
I suppose it's also covered in vagueness of the structure that you mentioned before, but if design and agenda of the meeting will be structured without too much attention to what person wants to achieve with the event, like going more deep in what the value of time invested and how to get maximum from the space that we create.
For sure. So this one around sort of unprepared help requests, or maybe not unprepared, but just like vague and abstract help requests that don't. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, guys. That gives me some stuff to think about to help prepare folks for next time.
I do have one to add.
Please.
Which I just thought of, is no evaluation or look back. No growth, no.
No doubt. It's so funny. As soon as you mention that, I go, yes. Oh, yes, obviously. Like if you come bring a help request, like I want to know, well, how did it go, right? Whether everybody in the room said, no, that's a stupid idea and we didn't try it, or if it crashed in flames or went super well, that's hugely valuable information.
Yeah, but also on how on the session itself. So on could you have prepared it better, or could we have approached it differently and get better results or more efficiently? Stuff like that.
Cool. Yeah. So I think you mean to some extent, and correct me if I'm wrong, like, did you get the kind of help you were looking for, or you thought you wanted at the beginning of this thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know with like Troika, I've realized after the fact, I go, oh yeah, it turns out I didn't have any idea what I wanted, and this conversation has been helpful with that. But okay, cool. Well, stop. Please stop, Google. All right. She's always listening to me. Okay. So as we sort of make some pivot into designy space, my first question to you guys is, does anybody have a design request, a meeting, workshop, anything that's got to get planned that you want to bring into the space?
Yeah, I've got a suggestion.
Righteous.
So, I'm very interested in the phenomena of attention, and I've got a lot of lived experience of discipline in attention. And I've done a fair amount, not deep, but a fair amount of kind of skimmed research into other people that have an interest there. And what I want to do is create probably a day's workshop around it. I did a taster last week with a group in the U Lab, and then I realized, yeah, I haven't got this properly organized. It's you know, there's lots of bits that I loved to share, but it didn't really have a good logic line or a good, you know, process design, I think, of, you know, because I've got too much information to share actually. So how do I leave out stuff and make it meaningful and make it work?
And I have a question about the audience. Who are we talking to or with?
I'd say you know, professionals in learning and development, people that are you know, either working on it or would refer people that feel this is an issue for them.
Okay. So learning and development, sort of HR folks, and who, how many or how big is your group?
I'd say maximum around 12.
All right.
Not online, but for a day's workshop in person.
So in person is our context as well.
Yeah.
And when you say attention, like what's the goal that you're sort of working on towards this day? What is the experience or the intent behind this taster?
To walk away, well, the delegates would walk away with an increasing confidence in their ability to master and tame their attention, and have some potential pathways that, should they be dedicated enough, that we can use. It's just opening the door to that possibility.
So it sounds like you want to sort of introduce some practices and some different things to them.
Yeah, if it was, I mean, the prototype didn't have any, we did very minimal practice, so that might have been part of why it could have been improved a lot, but the day would include a number of different ways of practicing and putting it into practice and doing it for oneself, rather than me saying, this is how you do it.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like a desire for hands-on as well.
Yeah, experiential. Yeah.
Any other questions from you guys? What do you think might be helpful?
So the content that you have relate to those practices, or what are other kind of content that you want to share with this group?
Well, I've got examples and stories and research, and kind of summarized ideas. So in a way, what I want to do is orientate people to the bigger picture, particularly some recent findings in scientific research, also different schools of ways people break this down and relate to it, and then the benefits. What has research found out are the key benefits of mastering and taming your attention, but also giving people an opportunity to recognize what's distracting them, what's getting in the way of staying focused, which of course these days are probably amplified exponentially from 10, 15 years ago.
It's a nice point of reflection, what's distracting them in their daily life, right?
The sound's a little bit muffled. I couldn't hear what you were saying, Malia.
The distraction is that you mentioned. It's a nice moment of reflection. It can be highlighted in the structure of the workshop.
The structure of the workshop is a nice moment to reflect on. Is that what you said, or like?
So if I have some issue with my this is sound, or
It's better now that you changed it. It's better now, but your accent's a little strong, so I can't fully understand what you're saying. I think I'm getting it, but maybe not the whole picture.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that there is a lot of distraction on their way, and I just highlighted
distraction.
that.
Okay, yeah.
That this is a nice momentum to reflect with them what kind of distractions they have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was the distraction. I didn't hear that, so I couldn't respond. Okay. Now that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
We're definitely in the meta space, right?
Yeah.
I have another thing to add that I think about a lot these days, which is like, especially around this topic of attention, is like, what is the larger why? Like, what's the why behind it? Why are we doing this? Especially because the distraction and overwhelming amount of information coming at us. So I'm often thinking about the differentiator for embodiment, for integration, not just more information. And that's something I'm wrestling with.
It sounds like Pleasance, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you're ready to get into this thing.
Just from the question period too, is like, what's the why? Why are you doing this? Why is this important? And how is this not more noise or distraction? It's meta, because it's like, how is this not distraction when we're talking about distractions being in the way of attention?
Okay. So I think I'm getting what so you're actually asking the question of like, so why are we doing this thing, this taster in the first place? Like, what do we hope? What is the sort of action that we'd like to inspire for folks, and what's our motivation?
There's a kind of primal element to it that's informing my design of the workshop, but won't be present in the workshop. I deeply believe that what Otto Scharmer says, that how we pay attention determines what emerges. So the civilization that we've got at the moment is a product of how we pay attention. So that's at the core. But unless you've studied that for yourself and put a lot of work into it, you're not going to realize that immediately. So this is a way of recognizing that attention is an important phenomena. It's an important resource. And actually, the quality of my life can improve if I have more mastery over it.
So it sounds like, to check, it sounds like what you hope to do is use this session to sort of inspire people to, forgive the pun, to pay more attention to the quality of their attention. Right?
Yeah. It's called Paying Attention to Attention, or that's the working name of it, as it were.
Cool. Well, that sounds like some reasonable clarification. Then, as per wise crowds, Dave, I'll invite you to mute yourself and turn off your camera, and we're gonna
Okay.
spit raps about what we think about this stuff. And
Are we
Maya,
using Troika now then? Is that?
effectively the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Turn my camera off and not sound off.
Your camera off and your sound off, please. No, not your sound off. Your mute. Mute yourself. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Cool. And if you guys can turn yourselves off mute, so we might be able to get a little bit more flow here. What comes up for you guys hearing Dave's story?
Very challenging. I would describe this as a tough one.
The topic is really interesting. I think I didn't grasp how the request, or not request, how the idea to have this 1-day workshop occurred. So this kind of why part, a bit of story beneath, then it could help better to suggest something about the design.
I understand why this is important in general, but not why this is important for this specific
For them.
people at this point in time.
Yeah, same for me.
I have information that might be an assumption, but I think it could also be relevant. He mentioned that this was coming out of the U Lab, so out of which I think just recently wrapped up. The Theory U Lab. It's a massively open online course for the Theory U from the Presencing Institute, from MIT and Otto Scharmer. So you mentioned Otto, and this. I know that this topic of attention is essential from that perspective as well. So if I'm going to sort of fill in with what I think he's talking about, I think he's sort of at the end of this trajectory going, all right, what's the way that we advance forward in this general way, but how do we give it a bit more structure?
So it's like sharing with a group of people, learning lessons, somehow bringing it to the people what they've learned in the U Lab.
Yeah, it sounds like trying to spread that content with a wider audience. That's what I understood. I could be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you want to spread it with a wider audience, you need to lower the threshold, as in assuming people at MIT are very smart. You should kind of dumb it down. So I can understand it as well. Not only dumb it down, but also 1 day is quite a long time. I understand these 12 people have apparently need to invest this day, but do they really want to? Or is it because management says so? I don't know.
Yeah, I feel mute, and I think that it's really important to figure out how to hook those 12 people into the topic so they will be really interested to learn about all of that.
I can hardly get around something like a TED Talk, which is not liberating structures. Or I don't know.
what's kicking around in your brain, Pleasance?
I'm going back to kind of that integrated and embodied. Like, I feel like I'm trying to think through, especially with the too much content to share, and the advantage of being in person is great in terms of not just content and information, but given the world that we're in and how much is there, how to organize the content enough where it really seeps in. And I think we have to understand like where our learning systems are right now. How much more can we take in? So I'm just wrestling with that dance between like this, like, if we were able to focus more on attention, we would probably slow down our process and our learning and actually be more integrated, regulated humans. And yet we're so full of content, it can sometimes be hard to access that part of our brain. But being in person is actually a gift, I think, in this way.
Okay. So if I think I notice my energy definitely has like this, you damn right, sort of vibe to it when I hear you describe about sort of full heads and lived experiences being very like, there's a lot of shit going on, and like deeply having this desire to like just have a space for a little bit less, right? And so I can tell, I recognize also in Dave the challenge that is when I'm really excited about something, how do I shut the fuck up about it? Right? Because like I can talk all day about the stuff I think is riveting and interesting, and what I notice is as well that for some reason that doesn't move people's lives the way I want it to, or the way the information especially moves me.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're going to try and really lean into this experience, so this is a design storyboard. This is my version of a design storyboard. So I'm just thinking about what's a basic pattern that we could use to sort of help give a blueprint for this much more embodied experience. I already noticed that the idea of like, here, try something and then come debrief it already feels much more like, much more grounded. That might afford me the opportunity to add a little bit more on top of that. But using the people's experience and their shares of that experience gives me much more, allows them to generate much more of the insight and do a lot less work myself. So without sort of knowing the specifics of the practice, right, I would generally want like some form of like, you know, try this time. Made it to some, I think that try this time is probably, if I think about attention, it's either going to be a solo exercise or maybe in small groups, but try this time with some reflection and then a generous debrief. And then like, I would want to think of like, how can I add 5% of extra insight or information onto that debrief? And yet I notice coming back to sort of the brief as well, this sense of like, all right, so how do we set the frame that really hooks people in and gives them the, my God, I need this, that sort of creates the desire for them to want to lean into these experiences in the first place? Any ideas there?
I think you need some form of a story where they recognize themselves, or some form of exercise where they hit their own limits because of this.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends if those people work in the same organization, then it's possible to describe in a story some dynamics that they can recognize. But if they have different experience, then maybe it will be easier to go through their own experiences. So that is the question. So they reflect.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, so both of those things seem particularly strong, right? Starting on a narrative basis, right, of telling the story of what it's like, and then inviting folks to figure out what their version of that is, right? So something along those lines seems like a good starting space of like, hey, have you ever, this is the story of either or someone sort of archetypical hitting the wall of their capability, and asking folks to sort of investigate where that is for them. And I noticed that, for whatever reason, helping heuristics is a structure that's sort of jumping out to me, which is a little edgy, but I think could be a good way to sort of start that space, start people off in that space of like, what is something that is a sticky widget for me right now? So if I think about the starting space that might be useful, do you guys know helping heuristics before I just keep rattling on in a super presumptive way?
By name only.
Okay.
I've only heard of it. I've not experienced or done it.
Cool. Well, let's see if I can break.
Yes, but I anyway don't remember what it is.
Yeah, helping heuristics is the other structure that is done, sort of coaching structure that's done in trios. So person one is the client, and person two acts as the sort of coach, and they go through 4 distinct helping heuristics to guide that conversation. And then person 3 is in an observer role. So basically, helping heuristics starts with, and ironically, I don't remember what the specific heuristics are. The first one is just, it really rhymes with generative listening. So it's just shut up and give full space and attention to the client. The second space has the second space, and each one of these heuristics basically is a time box of around 2 minutes. So take 2 minutes to just listen to what the client has to say. Take 2 minutes to sort of probe, right? To ask your sort of investigational questions, to get a little bit more information, and then spend 2 minutes in what I believe is like gentle provocation, right? In a bit more of a slightly adversarial role, trying to find inconsistencies, right? And incongruity in the coachee, right? And then the fourth round is what they consider process mindfulness, which is just 2 minutes of, hey, what was this conversation? How was this interaction sort of flow? Where you sort of step out of the role of client coach and have much more of a gelijkwaardig, a much more even conversation. At which point you would ask the observer to come to join into the conversation and say, hey, what did you notice in the interaction space? So, I mean, a couple things pop up. right? So if I think about this idea of starting off with a story about being in your boundaries, I would want to offer folks some structure to reflect on where their boundaries might be, but then throw them directly into some experience of interaction around that particular challenge for them, so that they can sort of grapple with it. At which point, I think everything that follows has a very real use case, right? If I'm going to introduce these exercises for, just jump back in here, Dave. That everything that follows has this, oh yes, this is why, sort of feel and vibe to it, and then moving into this here, try this thing out, do some reflection, and mostly have a debriefing conversation about what the exercise was like, what did I notice, and then allow that to be the scaffolding for my additional information and theory. Just helps it be much more of a lived experience. In comedy and stand up, we would say you don't want to talk over your laughs, right? Right. And so I think in training, especially in this type of stuff, there's a real challenge between just pushing people into the experience rather than trying to explain the experience.
Yeah, and I remember this exercise. It's very powerful, especially when you are changing roles.
Yeah, for sure. So in these trios, yeah, you would obviously rotate, is the typical invitation, right? To spend a moment in both the coach, the coachee, and the observer role as you go through this thing, which I think for an experience that you're sort of describing, wanting people to sort of really enter into this subtle space around attention, what I've had really good luck with recently is stable grouping, right? So I will start people off in the same trio that they will basically follow according to the whole course of the day, which just enables them to sort of ground in. It's like, oh, you again. Hey, yeah, all right. We have built some familiarity and trust as time goes by.
Yeah.
Mama is at work, Isaiah. Mama will be done at 6. We'll be back at 6, buddy. Yep. Welcome to my real life. 6, Isaiah. In 1 hour, Mama will be back. So as you try and sort of make sense of everything that sort of rolled over you that we've been sort of throwing at you, what sort of sticks and lands do you think you might be able to work with?
Yeah, I think some of what's been said sort of echoes what I'd already thought, but I think very much everything that I do, all the work I do, I want to ground it in the person's actual experience, particularly if that experience is in the moment and present for people. So the forms that you've suggested, I think actually, I was going to do journaling around those issues, but actually sharing them in trios might be more powerful. There might be more commonality. And then also, because some kind of impulse would have brought people into the room, but then it would confirm why they're there and why it's important to engage.
For sure. And what I notice as you describing that, sort of comes up for me is that then that also becomes a shared experience, right? That it's not just my motivation to be here, but it's actually, oh yeah, there is a shared field of, shit that we all recognizing from one another.
Yeah. And I think, I'm not sure, my personal story is, how relevant that would be, but I think I need to find, you know, like Niels was suggesting, some kind of hook in that story, because in a way, whatever's going on, we do have a longing to be in some kind of peak for performance, peak state, be at our best, whatever. So these practices enhance that. And there's a wonderful TEDx video of a woman that was a trained Olympic shooter, and for years struggled with her own impulses, competitive impulses. And then she describes this beautiful moment of how she was in the final. There was one shot she needed to win the gold, or whatever it was she needed to win. And she was there, and the wind was blowing. And what she put her attention on was a leaf falling nearby. And because she had mastered her attention on what she was paying attention to in that moment, she was able to win because she wasn't distracted by her own functioning, you know, her own wandering mind. So that, in a way, is a great metaphor or a great story. So there's something powerful about illustrating the power of attention there that I think has could be a good hook. I mean, it won't be my story, but it could be a story about attention and, you know, maybe even a disaster of attention moments, distraction, that illustrates the importance.
Oh, well, a couple things pop up, right? I can definitely sense like it's funny, like as you even tell this anecdote of this woman's story, I noticed some like some aspiration sort of awakens in me, right? Of like,
Yeah.
oh yes, you know, yeah, you know, yes, I want this moment too, right? And I think like this other factor that that Pleasance also brought in as also seems like at some point like almost trite with exhaustion, but also super relevant, right? The way in which we're all sort of exhausted is, you know, as we close out year 2 of this of the world that is COVID, right? Like just the opportunity to just, you know, sink into this other layer of like, oh man.
Yeah. Well, I think there's and this is how I also try and conduct and design the learning sessions I run, is for it not to be a burden, but to be a relief. So where there's a kind of joy and discovery and relief in letting go of all of everything that Pleasance described and you just described, is how can that not be impinging my attention and slaughtering my ability to participate, as it were.
Cool. Well, when do I get? When can I join?
Yeah. Funnily enough, when Niels was mentioning you need to make it more accessible, this was my more accessible version because I'm trying to reach a broader market. But
well, I do think it's really an interesting topic for pretty much anyone, but how make it interesting for everyone to spend the entire day on it and also take away something from it. That's I think, quite a challenge.
Yeah, I get you. And the whole digital revolution has created the attention economy. So I'm competing with everybody that is trying to capture your attention, not, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess I feel like we're kind of at a decision point. And let me check with you, Dave, because I think you're obviously the architect here. Would you like to sort of, do you think you have enough to work with, or would you like to make a more concrete step into a game plan or agenda?
I don't think I know this is part of it. I was kind of in the storming phase of researching materials. No one had a workshop, had anything they wanted to prototype last week. So I pulled this together quickly, but I think the bits aren't distinct enough from one another yet to organize it better. But I think what you've shared here is a kind of spine of the kind of principle of making it deeply relevant and personal, but also reflection and doing that as a group. The helping heuristics would also be a good pattern to bring people together, but also to explore the question or issue or most pressing thing for them in a bit of depth and get some mutual support. So I think those patterns are useful. I don't think I'm at the phase yet where I could do the day because I need to sort through the elements.
No worries. Well, then,
I think I know I want to make it experiential. So what you were saying about reflection and what Malia was mentioning, that actually not organizing the day around the content, but organizing the day around the experiential bits and tacking the content on, I think would be a better design than sort of, blobs of presentation and now get on with this. They might be better integrated in that way.
righteous.
Yeah.
Well, glad you've got food for thought.
Yeah.
Which brings us at so I do have a design challenge continuously that obviously we don't have a lot of time left, but I'd like to throw it in front of you guys and see what comes up for ideas. What I'd
just going to step away a moment, Jeremy. I'll be back very shortly.
Sure enough.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to host a workshop actually within the Liberating Structures community to try and sort of clarify / galvanize the community towards the growth of Liberating Structures users, so more users, but also increased sort of depth and proficiency of the existing user base. So I'd like to invite especially the user group organizers into a space to sort of inventory, what are you guys doing and how do we do more of it together, get to more of this more increased proficiency and growth of users.
Is that the means to the goal you want to achieve?
Is that the means to the goal I want to achieve?
Yeah, that's a very complicated question, I know.
Yeah.
There's a lot in there. Let me try to rephrase. Do you think organizing more events will lead to growth of the Liberating Structures?
I'm not sure. So as an outcome of this meeting, I don't know that more events is necessarily the goal. But what my hypothesis is the people I want to sort of get in the room are people that are really interested in increasing their own skill and proficiency and helping other people learn. And I think that user group organizers is probably the right group for that.
Yeah.
So my goal is actually, like I said, I would like to sort of get us towards a space where we can start collaborating a bit more explicitly towards this goal. That would be the actual goal of this session. but the
And
participants.
if you have more users, what would be the advantage of that?
Well, that's very, very personal. Isaiah, please do not jump on the chair. Go sit down on the couch. Thank you. So my goal of having more users of liberating structures, well, my personal goal for that is I really like this session is a good example, right? I really like this, what becomes possible in communicating along the lines of these shared structures, these shared patterns, and how that actually influences working together. So that's why I want to have more people in that scene, right? So my goal is effectively is to be in this sort of way of like creative collaboration with people, with more people more of the time. And I think for sure, I want to lean into the community of liberating structures users. And I also want to bring more people into that pool of possible community members as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong there. There is sometimes a resistance of using liberating structures in organizations, and by spreading the knowledge and engaging more and more people into knowledge about liberating structure and its positive effects, in a long run, it's like make it our life easier, because we will just use liberating structures and get better co-creation and collaboration in organizations. To break this glass of resistance.
It's more like lead by example.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, so the context is really this, right? So my personal goal is I want more creative collaboration with liberating structures, with more people, more of the time in my life. So I have two ways of doing that. Number one is I want to lean into the community of liberating structures users by plugging in with people that share that goal. And that's the participants of this workshop that I believe share that goal. And that'll be primarily user group organizers and people that have been in the scene for a hot second. And the goal of this session actually is not only for me to just lean into them, but also figure out ways that we might be able to support each other towards this goal of increasing our own proficiency and growing the overall volume or pool of users. So the goal of this session would actually be like, hey, how might we be able to do this stuff that we're doing individually a little bit more together and a little bit more kick-ass, so to speak.
So you actually want to tap into the creative mindset of the people that are present, because they are generally perceived as creative people, which I will heartily agree. So you need to get them into a sort of creative way of thinking using some kind of creative thinking method. And then diverge into just generating ideas, because that's where you need to go then. And after that, converge into picking a few of those to get to what are we actually going to do. These sessions usually take longer than you expect.
Are we already in the structure suggestion mode, or because
do you guys have any more clarifying questions?
Yeah, I did, Jeremy. I'm conscious that, you know, there have been a number of Liberators initiatives. They went online last year, quite a number of them, or there were a number of sessions online in groups. They seem to have faded away now, according to my emails anyway. what are you envisaging? What's the niche or position this fills? Is it a replacement for those, or what's the kind of niche in the liberator system that you're hoping to provide that's missing or lacking?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think so two things sort of pop up in response to this. One is, I think we in the Liberating Structures community do a very good job of this portion of diverging, right? That I think that has to do with the people that are attracted to liberating structures tend to be decentralized type people. And like myself, like this space is a perfect example. I just have an idea. I want to fucking go do it. I don't want to talk to anybody about it. I'm just going to go. Right. So we diverge very naturally. And the convergence towards something doesn't, there's not necessarily, I mean, there's an organic sorting algorithm that means like, oh, whatever actually sticks around is what we end up converging towards, but it's not like there's any actual force that anybody or we are necessarily exerting to come towards convergence. Okay. So what I'd really like to do is figure out, hey, how might we be able to look at mechanisms that might help us sort of come together into a shared initiatives, right? Because this is basically one big open source development project, right? But how do we sort of, how do we get on the other side of the funnel? So cool. If there's no more clarifying questions, I'm gonna fuck off. You guys can chop it up.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, he's even stopping sharing his screen. I can't look at it. I should have taken notes.
Okay. Well, firstly, I applaud it. You know, I enjoy Jeremy's sessions and I enjoy this style of working. So any extension and I think consistent opportunity to engage is welcome. Whether it's liberating structures or it's a similar creative collaboration, I think is great.
Yeah, I definitely inspired by the will to bring more to society, like it's about giving to others, and it's just a great intention.
Yeah.
And it's connected to the internal need to have more collaboration and more people to share their thoughts. So it's definitely a very clear goal by itself.
Yeah. I think people tend to come together because they have something in common, like liberating structures, like being facilitators in events or trainers or whatever. People stay together because of the social interactions and the added value for that part, I think. Yeah. So we shouldn't deny it, but that's more looking towards an answer Jeremy wants to have out of that session.
To me, it's a way to activate people around, think about engaging more and more people into use of co-creation by using liberating structures. So it just sounds as giving space to people to generate the ideas how to get more people to be engaged. It's a bit like getting more people on your side of the religion.
Yeah.
I wonder if there isn't a challenge just in terms of Jeremy's response to my question. It could be that, you know, there's innovators, instigators, pioneers or whatever, you know, they act quickly in response to their impulses, but many of those impulses don't sustain themselves over time. So, and if you're drawn to sustain yourself over time, maybe you're not drawn to innovate. So how the challenge for this initiative is, how do you sustain something that is always creative? So it almost seems like the sustaining of this event becomes the convening part of that node. But I think that there's a challenge inherent in the dynamic that people are exploring this at the moment. Almost, if you like open-ended, you're not going to be drawn to something that's more stable, organized, predictable. So I think there's a tension there in the kind of creative dynamic.
So it feels
sounds
to me
as
like
one of threats, right?
sorry?
Sounds as one of threats to sustainability of the user group. That it's not a repeating event, it will just fade up, fade down, And this actually points me to maybe then starting the event with TRIZ as we did today. So asking people what we all can do to make liberating structure not really sexy.
Yeah. Or more make liberating structures disappear from the world entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mean they just become absorbed in like everyday functioning, that is no longer remark, oh, this is a liberated structure? Is that what you mean, or is it something different?
Not in a bad way. You mean it in a good way, like
I mean it more in a bad way, that nobody uses them anymore.
Yeah, but I like your thought, because I had this idea as well. It would be so cool to have liberating structures so injected in the DNA of our collaborations that people just forgot how it's called.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
like Xerox or like Googling.
Yeah,
But that would be very interesting and useful, but that doesn't, it doesn't feel like that's the direction Jeremy is headed. He wants to have more of a community that encourages people to think about how they have meetings and how they have creative processes.
Yeah. I actually think that he's heading to the direction to make it so spread it around that everyone just starts to use it. It's not about the amount of meetings. And even if the community of users gives the advice to have liberating structures events more rare, so it will increase the marketing importance of these events or something like that, it will be also a good suggestion. It's a feedback anyway. Whatever helps to spread the practices around.
Yeah.
he also said deepen. So what, I mean, I'm not that engaged in that community. I've dipped my toes in and out and used them a couple of times a few years ago. But there's the thing is that with consultants, coaches, facilitators, you often learn a new technique, but you don't necessarily, doesn't necessarily become something you really own. So I think there's you know, because I'm familiar with it, but I don't own it because I don't know. One, I don't have enough opportunity to practice enough of the structures to start to feel that I even know their purpose, you know. So there's something about, yeah, go on.
Yeah, this is actually your point in the reason why Jeremy created this particular meeting we are right now on, because this is a meeting where we can practice to design, because this is the most tough part of using the liberating structure.
Yeah,
is to design the session such a way that you'll have success, because a lot of people try to use it and failed miserably. And they tried it once. And here we have this supported group now, and then we can create it together. And this is really cool. So I think that what do you think, guys, about TRIZ as a start to see what is the strategy to make the worst possible within the user group and spreading the word about the liberating structures? And maybe later I thought about EcoCycle. So going through what kind of activities are going on for user group and what is the stage, what we can get rid of and what we can start. So it will be spread better, something like that.
We only have 5 minutes left. That's what I want.
Maybe we should invite Jeremy back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he won't get to feedback on what he's heard.
I heard it. Don't worry. Have no fear. All right. So I like it. I think this gives me something to work with for sure. I think TRIZ is a great opening space so that we can all sort of, on one way, like what I like so much about it is that obviously we can divine what direction we don't want to go in, but like I also want to like, it also very clearly articulates what's at stake, right? Hey, look, if it is not growing, if we're not getting better with it, it is sort of dying, right? So that the stakes feel high when starting in that direction somehow. EcoCycle, I love. There's actually precedence for it in this type of space. I found a bunch of documents from previous workshops around this topic where they did EcoCycle. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Is that another liberating structure?
Yeah, the EcoCycle is a liberating structure. So it goes through, it basically has folks sort of make a laundry list of all the stuff they do in the liberating structure scene or community or how they use them, and plot them along where they are in the cycle from gestation, birth, maturity, and creative destruction.
Yeah,
so
I sent a link to this practice, and it's very powerful in this kind of setup. If you want to see the maturity of some processes, thoughts, mental ideas, and practices as well, and it's super powerful from my perspective, as when you go from start what's new, like maturity, but also the most powerful, I would say, the last one, like creative destruction, because you rarely think about what you really want to get rid of, so you create space for new. And this like EcoCycle shows that you need to get rid of something to create space for new. Super cool.
Yeah, it's a strong reflection. And I think that reflection might just help create the space that I think, Niels, you're describing when you sort of are hinting towards design thinking of, all right, where, from that space of reflection, that could be the grown zone to think about, all right, what might we want to converge towards, given this shared reflection of all the stuff we're doing together. So that I feel like still needs I'm still going to need some thinking there, but I think these two steps are definitely a really good setup to either to enter into that space, or to at least create the sort of felt desire to want to take another step together at a different time could also work. So I can work with this. Thank you, guys.
Great.
Well, that was our first Wise Crowds Liberating Structures design call. Whether it makes any sense or not, I'm going to host another one next week. And my intention is to do this every Monday at this time, with the exception of the first Monday of the month, because that's when we do the Think Slow Dojo. So you guys are all subscribed to the Change Hackers meetup group. So you'll continue to get spammed with notifications. I appreciate your time, attention, and energy. And if you want to be super rad, figure out more people to drag into this space with us. and we can keep doing work.
Yeah, thanks for organizing.
Thank you,
Thank
Jeremy.
you.
Really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Can I get a
It was nice to
screenshot
meet
of
you.
everybody?
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, hold on. Let me. I gotta turn on my face too. Otherwise, it won't. Oh wow, that's what I look like, huh? All right. All right. Merry Christmas, everybody. Thanks so much.
Bye. Bye.
There we go.